Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Civil Service Data Challenge semi-final. We're all really excited to have you here today.
Hi everyone, my name is Corey and I work for DWP. And we are here today to share an idea about how we can better share data between the NHS and DWP to enable better outcomes for our bereaved citizens and individuals, but to also reduce overpayments of benefits. I just want to say a massive thank you to Team GENIE, who are here today, for the hard work in pushing this idea forward. It's been quite critical and yeah, they've done some great work so far. So can I just get a show of hands of anyone who's suffered a bereavement? Everyone in this room. In 2021 to 2022, there were 640,000 deaths in the UK. And it is estimated that for every death, 9 people are affected by the bereavement. Bereavement is everyone in this room's business. So it's quite critical that we get it right because we all will go through it again at some point in our lives. So what is the problem that we're trying to solve? So currently, it takes DWP around 8 days to find out about the death through the official registration route. When the death occurs, it'll go through an MCCD verification process within the NHS, which is a medical certificate cause of death. That document is then sent to the registrar, where the registrar will then register the death with the bereaved citizen. A teller's once reference number is also provided so the citizen can enrich that information and share that with other government departments. Now this takes around 8 days on average, and with upcoming legislation changes to the MCCD, where they'll require 2 pairs of eyes, it may get pushed even higher. So what does this mean in terms of impact to DWP and government, but also citizens? So in 2021 to 2022, we paid £136 million in overpayments of benefits. Citizens are also calling us before the death's even been registered, and we had 180,000 calls to report the death. We also have a team that recover the costs of these overpayments from bereaved families and individuals, which costs around £7 million per year. This is not seamless. There's not one way that we're finding out about the death. There's a variety of ways DWP find out about it, and it's not great. There's also letters being sent to families who are going through probably the worst times of their lives, asking to recover them costs of overpayments of benefits. It's not a great experience. So I'm just going to pass you to Jane, who's going to share some real user research on this problem.
Thanks, Corey. So benefit overpayments made after a death leave families dealing with a debt. Families like the one you can see on the screen here, who then share their experiences publicly. I'll read this out so you don't have to. Received a letter from DWP this morning, 3 months after my wife passed, saying they'd overpaid a benefit. Said there may be more overpayments, but I would be contacted separately. Just thought all the finances were sorted. You can never sit back and think that's it, because another overpayment letter could pop through the letterbox. And this was shared on the Macmillan Cancer Support Forum. It means that families that are dealing with a bereavement then have the additional stress and worry of having to sort out a debt, and often a debt that could have been avoided through better data sharing. I'd like to share Natalie's story. Natalie's dad died very suddenly, and while dealing with the shock and the emotional impact of that, she registered his death as soon as possible. But it was only later she learned a bit more about the benefits he was on. And then DWP sent her a letter about about state pension that was owed to her dad. But then very shortly sent another letter about attendance allowance that was overpaid and must be paid back. It meant that while Natalie was having to deal with the funeral, sort out her dad's bank, deal with his house, his household bills, friends and family, and a million different things you have to do in bereavement, meant that DWP gave Natalie yet more things to do, calls to make, admin to deal with, when she should have been supporting a family and grieving for her dad. And this is why data matters. By sharing early death notification data, we have the opportunity to reduce the amount of overpayments made to this family on the screen, made like those overpayments to Natalie's dad. And now I'd like to hand over to Jackie, who will talk a bit more about a proposed solution to this problem.
Thank you, Jane. Morning, everyone. I'm Jackie Legater from DWP Digital Group. We know from research that around 45% of deaths in the UK actually occur in hospitals. And when someone dies in hospital, it tends to be recorded on the NHS system within 1 to 2 days of the death occurring. So we know that that data is available within the NHS. And we've looked at the creation of an API that the NHS are working on that would enable DWP to subscribe to that new API that would enable us to get an early indication of death. So when DWP can subscribe to that API, we have sophisticated matching processes within the department that we can identify a DWP account and we can set a payment suspense. We would not be taking any formal death action until we get the formal death notification from the registrar. So in taking that initial suspense, we can prevent those overpayments going out to citizens and, of course, the stress caused to bereaved families. Through the sophisticated matching, what we're looking at doing is creating a small pilot on a geographical area that would enable us to build up the matching routines and be able to build confidence that we were matching accurately. Anyone who we had any doubt about, we would not be recording an indication of death. We would be passing it to an agent, to a person, to take action. And this follows normal processing within DWP now. Corey mentioned that we get deaths reported by telephone or maybe by other means. And we don't actually ever take formal action until we have the registrar confirm death. So this is following existing process within DWP and safeguarding citizens. We would never write to a citizen to tell them we believe that you're dead or anything silly like that. Thank you. So thinking about what that could mean for us in terms of 48 to 83 million pounds saved in overpayments. So value for money for the taxpayer. Of course, removing the stress from bereaved families in getting letters asking for repayments of benefit. And that £7 million administrative costs in trying to recover overpayments could be better focused on value-add tasks like pulling together the totality of the position across DWP so we're not getting siloed communications from pensions, from attendance allowance. We could actually start to join that up into a meaningful bereavement journey for the families. And of course, there's an environmental sustainability impact as well. We send over 1 million letters backwards and forwards between the department and families that we would no longer need to send. So we'll be saving 4,000 trees per year into the bargain. So thinking about how we would do this, we've already been working really closely with the NHS on what this could look like, what it would look like. There's an awful lot of reusable technology. This is not our first rodeo between the department and the NHS. We've already done some great work on things like the NHS free prescription benefit check. So we've proven working in partnership can be really impactful and really helpful in terms of joining up those services for citizens. And that's how we want to approach this, working together, joint project, joint success. And I'm going to hand over to Vicky from DHSC.
Thank you, Jackie. So I want to just quickly talk about GENIE and what is the G in GENIE? Well, it's government. So this project isn't just for DWP and for health. Actually, this is quite scalable. We believe that GENIE is scalable across the wider civil service and also across local government. Some of those examples might be, for example, identity fraud. We know that that is heightened when somebody passes away through passports and driving licences. The local authorities, the blue badges and the discretionary travel passes also have an impact, and also adult social care costs. There's also impact here for health and the health family. I just want to give a very quick example. I have a dear friend whose husband passed away several months ago, and very recently, in the last few weeks, she got a letter through the door for an operation that her husband desperately needed. That was devastating because it was an operation he needed, but also devastating because it was an operation that wasn't going to be utilised by anybody else. So there's a real impact here for health, the waiting lists and for adult social care and all the interactions that happen within health. We also want to just say, just to wrap up, that this is about showing what a modern civil service is, what it can look and feel like. We want to use our skills, our ambition and our innovation to really prove the perception of what the public think, that the civil service is joined up, and we want to truly make it joined up. Thank you very much, and we'll answer any questions.
Thank you, team. Excellent presentation. Right, 15 minutes. Who would like to kick us off? Simon, straight in there.
Yeah. Hi, team. I love the fact you're facing into this. I've got experience of what you talk about from two very different perspectives. I lost my mum in October, so I've very recently gone through all of this process, and I recognise everything you say. And also my role leading digital teams at the Home Office mean that I look after the RON system, which ultimately gets the formal notification through the local registrars. So I recognise the time lag there, and it took me many days to get that sorted through the local registrar. I guess for me, right at the nub of this is our ability as government to take those actions based on the NHS notification that is available, as you say, 1 to 2 days after. Have you tested that with policy teams in DWP, and would they support us doing that suspension based on getting early sight of that NHS notification?
Yeah, so we've tested the legality of sharing that data and acting upon it, and we treat it the same way that we treat a telephone call. So we're not actually taking any formal death action. What we're doing is saying there's an indication that someone has died and we suspend the payment. We're not closing down accounts, we're not taking any formal death action. It's an indicator. We then wait for the formal notification from the registrar before we kick off the death process. If we didn't get that formal notification from the registrar within 3 weeks, it would alert a task to an agent to perform what we call an alive check. That's an existing process that exists in DWP. We've not had contact from a citizen in a long time, so that would fall into the existing alive check process. So we're trying to be sensitive and obviously protect the citizen. We don't want to end up on the front page of a newspaper that we've used that information incorrectly. And of course, the matching will be key as well.
Yeah, that's really clear. Thank you. That's alleviated that point. Just in building on your comment there about the matching, have we been able to validate how effective our ability to match will be? What's the level of confidence that we can have high success on that?
So the current matching rate with NHS data for the NHS free prescription charge is 87%. So we're confident that we'll achieve that at least. We have quite sophisticated matching in the department, so we can check for things, variations of names. So if we get Jimmy, we can check for James, Jim, John, etc. And we would look to get a sufficient level of matching. If we didn't get that sufficient level of matching, then we wouldn't take action if we didn't have confidence in it. That's why the test and learn approach is really important in doing some of that testing and learning and making sure that that fine-tuning on the matching gives us sufficient confidence to kick off a process that would suspend a payment.
Thank you. That's really clear.
I think my question is just really kind of a continuation of that and building on Simon's point. What's the How confident are you that of the other way around, that you don't suspend people's accounts because of false positives or false matching? Kind of, you know, do you have any data from your existing service that might help with that? So
when we do the testing and we do the fine-tuning of the matching, we work to ensure that we get to a confident level, and that's worked with our across DWP and NHS and with our business colleagues and with our data quality colleagues. So this is about getting the data quality correct. And I think if there is any doubt, if we're not hitting the bar, we'd match normally on 3 items: name, address and date of birth. If we're not matching exactly, we'll go into doing the fuzzy matching. If we're still not getting a good match, then it would fall out into a manual process, or we just wouldn't act on that indicator, because that's all it is at this time. If we happened to match the wrong person and we had a contact from someone saying my payment didn't go in my bank account, we can then execute what we call a faster payment, which means the payment could be released that same day to the bank account.
Hi, I'm John Quinn from the NHS. One thing that we've found is that members of the public are quite happy sharing data with the NHS. They're less keen on sharing it with government, and it can sometimes fall into the creepy space for them. For this piece of work, in order to get across it, what plans have you thought about in terms of public engagement about the use of this data? Have you thought about how you might take that forward with members of the public?
Yeah, sure. I think those are absolutely real concerns that we hear through our user research, but equally we hear thousands and thousands of cases that have, with that added distress at a point of bereavement where they have got an overpayment letter. And had those people understood that that could have been avoided, that would have been a better outcome for those. And that's something we hear universally throughout our years of research in the bereavement space. Within DWP, we work with a Tell Us Once system, bereavement support payment, funeral expenses payment. So people in a point of real need in bereavement and their experience of this overpayment and perhaps having to deal with debt at that point.
Just before you come back, I think the question was triggered from how you might replicate this in other business areas which would not be as sympathetic. So I think if we were using NHS data to detect fraud, which might be a very good idea from a civil service and government perspective, it might undermine the confidence people have in NHS data. So I think on that space, you'd have to engage perhaps quite differently.
It's a really important point, and the API that we're looking at in the NHS is purely for death information. It wouldn't give us access to anything else. But you're right, in terms of any sharing of data across government, there needs to be public confidence, there needs to be good cause, and it needs to be done in the open. We need to be really open and transparent about what we're sharing here and why we're doing what we're doing. Sure, there's an element of reducing overpayments here, which is in everybody's interest. We're all taxpayers. But actually, the amount of grief and confusion that it causes to families who are going through a bereavement, that's the real driver. So there's probably some work that we can do with customer representative groups that support those when we see what was on the Marie Curie website, etc. And that's something that we would look at the next stage, to how we work with those groups to get support, because it's about making it easier for people.
Thank you so much for the presentation, really powerful case, and it's great to see this partnership at work. So that's the heart of my question, is what is it about being in the Civil Service Data Challenge that is going to help you progress beyond where you seem to be going already?
So we took a discovery to bereavement back in, I think it was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And there was a variety of problems across the current service. Because I'm a service designer, I look at the end-to-end service from a customer experience perspective, but also government. And we were just focusing on DWP, and I think bereavement's cross-cutting. It's HMRC, there's GDS who are also involved, there's the NHS, and it's about bringing everyone together. And I think the data challenge has allowed us to do that. It's given us that sort of platform to be able to work together, and I think it's been amazing so far. There's obviously people who haven't spoke, like I mentioned, who have been quite critical in pushing forward conversations. So yeah, I think this data challenge is sort of the driving force, which is really good.
I'm Aydin from HMRC, but previously DWP, and I recognise Jackie, so lovely to see you again. A follow-on from that is, what stopped you doing this? Or it seems so simple and straightforward. What's been the biggest kind of challenge on that? And a follow-up question to that as well will be, how will it then link into the Tell Us Once service?
So I've only been here 9 months, so yeah, this is my sort of first rodeo, I guess. But I don't know if anyone's got anything to add on why it's been challenging.
I guess in terms of the challenging, there's in government, there's a mindset. We've grown up over the last 20 years of lock down your data, don't let anybody see it. We're seeing a mindset shift. It's happened faster in some departments than others, and there's something about using this as an opportunity to help and get senior sponsorship to bring us all up to at least the opportunity of sharing data, but sharing it safely, and that's the real platform. Sorry, what was the second part?
And the second part is, Tell Us Once. How does will then, if you like, interact with that, replace that? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we've got some workshops planned in June, cross-government workshops, service design workshops, where we're going to come together and actually map out what does the future of bereavement look like. We've all got different work going on within our departments. It's about bringing that together into one sort of vision. So we don't know what the future of Tell Us Once looks like right now, but hopefully in the next few months we'll have an answer to that. But yeah, it all obviously depends on if this is successful or not, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
And I guess picking up on Vicky's point about the cross-government, this could, as the redesign of the Tell Us One service, because although the Tell Us One service, it looks great to the citizen, they give the registrar the information. Behind the scenes, it's a bit of smoke and mirrors. Yeah, there's papers flying all over government. Yeah. Then I think, as Vicky says, looking at the opportunities cross government, there is an opportunity with the transformation of the Tell Us One service to actually hook this in as part of that service, so it becomes available, the API not just available for DWP, but for the Tell Us One service. So that's the wider opportunity. And doing that on the backdrop of a Pathfinder with DWP makes that really palatable for other government departments.
So thank you for a great presentation. I can really see the join up and the collaboration opportunity. Do you see any further opportunity for more automation and efficiency, kind of taking it one step further? So say you get the API in. Do you see any further opportunity for using data, like using the tech more, for example?
There's certainly opportunity there for us to do straight through processing, but we would always want a person to be involved in the actual recording of the death. But certainly we can be working in the background to bring together, if we've had a phone call, if we've got the early death indicator, we're layering on different elements or different routes of notifying that someone has died, and that gives us a weight of evidence that we could potentially start to trigger some of that activity sooner rather than later, in terms of bringing together the benefit information so that it's not 3 months after the death, just when somebody thinks they're starting to get back to normality without their loved one. So it could certainly help accelerate that. We're not attempting to remove people from the process altogether, but in that £7 million administration on recovering overpayments, it's far more value add for them to be spending time talking to bereaved families and supporting bereaved families to get a single outcome.
Can I just add to that as well? Just to add, where else can we see this kind of idea? I'm from Department of Health and Social Care. We've used 2021-2022 data. In that year, the UK government spent £536 million on overseas healthcare for what we call S1s, and over 60% of that was within Spain. Already this year, we've saved £10 million from my team by sharing data with DWP on death, and that's for the known death. For the unknown death, because we don't always know when people pass away abroad. So there's big opportunities here, and already we're working together collaboratively, bigger and wider than just this one project. So the Civil Service Data Challenge, I suppose, to a couple of questions, has already made a real difference.
And potentially, well, when we build this, we probably will build as an open platform which is reusable for any exchange of any government data between any government data of any type. So high potential there.
I love the idea particularly because it's data sharing to be proactive, right? And that's something that we don't do enough of across government. So I think it's a great example of that. Just building on the benefits case. So you've talked about kind of the benefits of sharing data and being able to prevent expenditure. You gave us some numbers for the amount of money that I've written it down somewhere in overpayments every year. And you've talked about how much you would save in overpayments. Is there so of the 136 million that's overpaid every year, is there an amount that just you don't get back?
Yeah.
So you don't recover all of that?
Yep.
Do you know what that is roughly off the top
It's
of your
around
head?
half.
Around half?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Because not all deaths are captured by NHS, so there will be, so it will only cover a portion of the population.
Yeah, there's been some data modelling gone behind that 48 to 83 million, which we obviously won't share because it's quite technical. But yeah, we can send that information if you want to see it as well.
We'll take it in good faith.
Thank you very much, team. Excellent presentation.